Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Land Conservation Committee meeting to order. Roll call.
Jim Schultz,
Here.
Pat Kenny,
Here.
George Broussais,
Here.
Gary Eater, David Mindell,
Here.
Charlie Ortman, and Jerry Richardson are excused, and that completes roll call.
Introductions.
We'll go ahead and just go around the room. Mary Jo Gingras, Ashland County Land and Water Conservation County Conservationist.
Seth Hackbarth, Ashland County Engineering Technician.
Scott Caven, Land and Water Specialist, Ashland County Land and Water Conservation Department.
Tim Micka, Ashland County Land and Water Ag Technician, also serving Douglas, Bayfield, and Iron County.
Ethan Rosen, USDA Wildlife Services Damage Program Coordinator for the DNR.
Beth Points, Natural Resource Conservation Service.
George Boucher, County Supervisor, Town of White River.
Pat Kenny, County Board, the area up in what was Northland College.
Gary Eater, District 19, Gordon and Jacobs and down by Glidden.
Jim Schultz, Chair, LCC.
Dave Mindel, District 20, County Supervisor.
Carisha Flint, Administrative Assistant.
Okay. Move on to public comments. Anybody have any public comments? Any online? One more time for public comments. We'll move on to number 4, approval of today's agenda.
This is Gary. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Gary Eater. Can I have a second?
I'll say. Dave Mindel.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? We'll move on to number 5, approval of,
Point of order, we need to vote on it.
excuse me?
We need to vote on it.
Oh, I stand corrected. All in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That'll bring us to number 5, approval of the minutes. December 4th, 2025 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
This is Pat. I'll make an motion to approve it. Then I have just one comment if there's a second.
This is Gary.
Motion to approve,
I'll
second by Gary.
And the comment is
Discussion.
Yeah, in 4A, the paragraph, the second one, there was a motion by Ortman. At the end of that sentence, there's a period, and then there should be a space before the next sentence starts with the word "the." Just inserting a space right here.
You need a period?
No, there's a period, but there's not a space between the period and the "the." Just a space is all.
Any more thoughts, suggestions? Do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion action items. Set 2025 wildlife damage corn prices.
Okay, that's going to be Ethan.
Yeah, just curious, I had that document, I guess I sent for the crop price per hose. I've got it printed out here. I don't know if you wanted to show that on the screen or not, or if that's accessible. I can get it up on, I can get it, I got my computer up and going. If you want to show that stuff on here, it'd be easier to show the, I guess the crop prices and then also the claims on those documents. Do you want to hook up the computer here? Want me to just come over there and do that?
You can use that one.
Okay, thanks for bearing with me there. So this is the crop price proposal sheet that I need to have approved for my damage claims for last field season. Basically you can see you got so field corn, soybeans, and then bee colony and honey. I had producers that had soybeans, field corn, obviously, and then one guy that had a honey operation, apiary, that a bear destroyed a couple colonies and some honey. And so these are the market prices I had figured out through some resources of what they'd found for like the bee guy, what he found to replace his bees, and then the soybeans, the field crops go off the fair market reports. So I had for field corn at $4.08 a bushel, soybeans $9.65 a bushel. The bee colonies, $189.90 per colony, and then honey was $10.60 a pound. So that's what I'm looking to get approved for claims that will then carry into the next part of my part here. So looking to get that passed.
Yeah, how do those prices compare to the prior year?
I think corn was $4.09 last year. Soybeans, I don't remember offhand, but it was pretty similar. Honey and bee colony stuff is pretty similar too. So not much difference really.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion has been made to approve prices as stated. Second,
I'll second it.
second by Gary Eater. Any more questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. USDA agency reports and updates.
So yeah, the other thing I need to have approved is the claims that go with those prices then. So this is kind of a quick overview of the actual claims I had from this last season. Let's see. So you'll see I had 8 enrollees, 7 of which were eligible for claims, 2 that were not. I guess, okay, you can see here. One was just Act 82, so that's just enrolling, get shooting permits. However, no claims paid out, no public hunting either involved. And then the other one was for $120.98. There's a $500 deductible for the program, so they did not make the deductible. So there's no claim paid out for that person there. So after that, then I believe we have 6 claims I need to have approved for being paid out. And it lists each one of them here, who they are, and then the claim after deductible, and then these are what I need to get paid out. Highlights basically from this year to last year, worth mentioning, I guess. Well, I guess before I get into that, that's what I'm looking to get approved. I guess, is there any questions on that part right there?
Remind us of the funding source, please.
So this is all DNR through funding. So I'm appraised these farmers' damages that they had, and then I'm presenting what they had for damage here. Once that's approved with the prices that I set just before this, then that's through funding from the DNR that gets paid back.
I've got a question about, there's number 7 there.
Mike, please.
The prop, I got it. With the John Rallinger claim,
Okay.
is that, you're the one that did the damage thing, right? Is that, that's including my 2 fields that are there? Okay, I'd like to, abstain from voting because there could be a conflict because it is my property. Okay, so I don't know, I hope it doesn't interfere with anything here, but I stand where I abstain from voting on that. Thank you.
That makes sense to me.
Pat, just in terms of process, do you want to vote on this before you move on from what we see on the screen, or do you want to go further before we have a vote?
It'd be easiest just to approve this, and then I can break this down and explain how this year compares to last year, and then I have a short 6-7 slide PowerPoint also to go with this kind of thing. It helps overview of what I did last year, but this is the last thing I need to have approved.
George,
I'd like to move to approve.
motion was made to approve damage claims. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Gary Eater. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion
Note-
carried.
Note abstentions, please.
Excuse me?
Probably should note abstentions. I'm saying in the vote, you should note whether there are any abstentions.
One vote of abstention, abstain.
I abstain, yes.
Correct. Thank you.
Who's
Brings
the,
us to civil engineering technician report.
Okay, let's hold up just for a second. Because I think there's still some questions on the damage claims. And Ethan, if you could also just explain the difference between the appraised damage and the claims after the deductible too.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'd like to kind of run through this all and explain a bit more, kind of to go with it. So, who's the person that signs for these, by the way? Jim? So I'll leave this all that orange spots there for you. So yeah, so to kind of explain this a little bit more, then how this works is basically I have quantity loss for each person that was enrolled. I got, either acres or bushels describing how much. And then basically I take that times the crop prices to figure out how much appraised damage they had. And then after the $500 deductible, that's what this line is right here, which is what the actual producer sees. There is a limit of $10,000 per producer in a year as well. So for instance, John Reilinger here with elk damage had $19,000 in damage. However, the program only pays up to $10,000. So that's why there's a cap there. Same thing with the next line 5 here. Soybean damage, $15,000, $10,000 cap there as well. And another guy here had a deductible after his deductible at $15.05. So it kind of shows that kind of what's going on with that there. And then the total acres appraised is shown right there as well. The takeaways from this compared to last year, looking down here, for enrollees, last year we had 5 enrollees. This year we had 8. Talking to producers so far this year, it's been a really busy year for stored feed. In the last month, I had probably 13 calls between Ashland, Bayfield, Aaron County. The year prior to that, I think I had 2 calls. The year prior to that, I had 1 or 0 calls. there's been a lot of stored feed issues going on. Farmers are starting to talk and realize that this program is actually being helpful, and so they're getting excited to call in. And I'm unfortunately getting a lot of work for myself, which is, I guess, a good thing, but getting pretty busy too. So the elk have been causing a lot of problems in Ashland County. The highlight from last year to this year, appraised damages. We had a light year on damage. We had about $9,000 between two different producers last year. This year it jumped up to $24,000, mainly because the butternut area, we had a herd down there that we had been doing some abatement with repellents and lure crop plantings that worked for a while until it didn't work, unfortunately. And we went from not having much damage most of the growing season until the last month or two. Of course, when it's the most important, the herd of 40 some elk decided to eat about 40 some acres in about 3 weeks and cause some serious damage there. So long story short, those elk, as of 2 weeks ago, that herd has been cut almost in half, or roughly half. I think 16 or 17 elk have been relocated out of that herd. 3 additional elk have been collared in that herd and left there to help monitor what that herd's doing, because until this last couple of weeks, we didn't have any elk collared with GPS collars that we're able to track what they're doing. Now we have that option to see what they're doing, so you can kind of keep track what they're doing better and hopefully try and get ahead of them more. I think that's kind of the gist. The other highlight too is deer damage. Last year we had $25,000 in damage. This year we had about $18,000 in damage. That's basically mostly 2 soybean farmers. And one guy, for example, is doing, well, that's a couple different soybean farmers. For what it's worth, there was 49 ag tags given out and filled in Ashland County last year. For crop damage, the previous year was 39 tags were filled for crop damage through deer. And one other highlight, elk-wise, I've got right now currently radio helping with one elk situation, stored feed. I've got some bag covers and some other ones. And the elk, just talking to a few people before the meeting started, are starting to move more into ag ground. I've talked to several producers that have not been enrolled in previous years that are planning to enroll this year. And I'm guessing that we're going to go from this year I had acres appraised 768. I'm guessing that number is going to triple probably next year with a couple of producers. I've been talking to some large producers that are finally getting interested in getting in the program. So we're going to see the number of enrollees and the acreage being appraised significantly increase probably this year. And a lot of that has to do with elk and deer is the other big one in Ashland County. So with that, I guess, is there any questions, I guess, about claims?
Suppose a farmer's got 40,000 in loss on corn, but he's limited to 10,000 in claim. Is it permissible for, say, a spouse or a father and son to each put in claims and end up at better than 10,000 overall? Or is it limited for some reason to one individual, even if it's a partnership, a corporation, and there's multiple partners and things like that?
Technically, it's whoever owns the crops. So if they're farming and say someone else owns the crops and they also enroll and go through the program, then there's might be some options there, I guess. But yeah, technically if like the farmer, if they're farming together on paper, then it's whoever the farm, like they can't break it up to, do different enrollments, I guess. They'd have to technically have different ownership of those crops laid out, I guess, if that makes kind of sense.
So if they're renting ground, how do you determine ownership of the crop? So say the father says, well, I'm farming that 40, and the son says, well, I'm farming that 40. They use the same equipment, because they're working together.
Sure.
Would it have to come down to their income tax and how they're filed? And
probably, yeah, exactly. So, yep, that's a good point, though.
So they could, if they look at those things.
It's not impossible, but yeah, there's some things that, you have to do to make it so that, it's not,
And if someone has questions, they could contact you for more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Any other questions, I guess, on the claim stuff? And then after that, if nothing else, I got just a little bit of PowerPoint to go through.
I think I'll just give them a quick reminder. So every year we work with the Wisconsin DNR and the USDA APHIS system now to help our producers that have damage from bear, deer, geese, elk, turkey. We used to manage that program in our own department, but once the elk herd started getting as large as it is now, it became more than a part-time job. So we're working with Ethan and the DNR and the APHIS crew to help these producers. So every year in the fall, late summer and fall, their staff goes out and will assess farmers that enroll with a damage, file a damage claim. So they'll go out and assess the damage depending on whatever animal it's from, do all the calculations. And then, like Ethan just did today, he does the research on getting an average price to rate that damage at, utilizing resources that we have around the region. And then they bring it to this committee to get approval on the people that have filed damages and actually then to issue those reimbursement claims. So that's kind of how the process works annually. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. Yeah, and yep, right here in this line here, number of appraisals. That's what all season long I was working with these producers to help them mitigate problems, and issue shooting permits and provide non-lethal abatements, this, that, or whatever, trapping bears, etc. And then towards the end of the growing season, before they harvest their crops, I'd go around to each farmer and every single field, especially the elk guys, walking or driving around with four-wheelers, surveying every single field and finding out quantifying how much damage was done for elk. I have airplanes with DNR. I get up and fly around and take pictures of all the damage from an airplane, and then sit around the last couple months. I've been looking at all those pictures, quantifying by looking at holes in cornfields, which is literally thousands of pictures of corn I've looked at the last month or two here, to quantify how much damage in bushels, a certain farmer would have from bears, like for example. And I also had to separate some guys like Morgan Peck, who not only has a significant amount of elk damage, but also has a significant amount of bear damage in some years and stuff too. So,
Why would we still be using airplanes, expensive way, when you could do it with drones?
we have played around with using some drones. A couple of our guys are certified to do it. It's a nightmare of a process. I think we've got 2 guys in the whole state, 3, 4, maybe the whole state. I think just the northern half state, 2 guys certified to use a drone for us. Federal government is a pain in the butt to get permission to do things like that. So it's easier. And also we might have on a given day in the fall, the DNR will send out probably once a week between probably the top third of Ashland or top third of northern Wisconsin, because this program is also in all the other counties as well in Wisconsin. And harvest season in September and October, there's planes flying probably at least once or twice a week. They'll take pictures of fields for farmer, be 1 or 2 pilots that will cover all of northern, the northern part of Wisconsin in a week, taking pictures of literally thousands of fields. And the pictures work great with the drone, with the airplane, because they go over top, they get about a certain height away so you can see down, and you can actually count how many rows wide the damage is and figure out the radius of it. And there's some formulas that I can use that I can basically take that and on a rating scale, I have a hole that's this size gets this number, this size gets that number, etc. Take all information, plug that in a formula, that spits out how much total acreage a bear caused in this exact field from the picture taken on this exact day. And sometimes we have to have those flights done. In my area, I had, I think, 4 different flights done between August and September anyway. So yeah, the drones, long story short, the drones work, but they're a lot slower. They take way better pictures, but we don't need that good of pictures. I just need to be able to tell roughly how many rows wide a hole in the corn is, essentially. So.
I gotta say, that was really interesting, because that explains why I've seen planes at times when I've been out at my place, the
Sure.
White River Ag in the neighborhood. It's like, what are they doing?
Yep, exactly. Yep, there's been plenty of that. And then we'll actually have airplane as well, besides doing appraisal pictures for me to look at. We'll have planes fly around and also help find damage. Same thing, a drone would work. But when I've got Ashland, Bayfield, Aaron County I'm working with, and 10, 15 bear guys and corn guys between those counties, that in a given week, I need to find out where the bear damage is occurring, because maybe I'm not catching as many bears as I should be, or I'm trying to figure out what other fields are having damage, et cetera. A plane can get up in the air and in about 2 hours cover Ashland, Bayfield, Iron County for me and tell me, okay, yeah, these fields have more damage here in this corner. I need to move my traps there, this, that, or whatever. So,
Ethan, why were the two claims not eligible?
yep. So this one here was a Christmas tree farmer down by Butternut. He did not want to. He wanted to be enrolled in the program so he could help with his Christmas tree problem with deer, but he just wanted to have some shooting permit tags just to help himself shoot some deer. But as far as damage being done, he didn't want to allow public hunting, which is a requirement to be paid out for any claims. So he just wanted to have some permits to help mitigate some deer problems he had on his Christmas tree farm. But there's no claim paid because he was not allowing public hunting. So it's one of the few things, bear, elk, all the other species, there's no option for that. The one exception is deer. There's an Act 82, which kind of like a loophole that you can receive shooting permits because the population of deer in Wisconsin is high enough that they can sustain some shooting permit harvest through ag tags, and it helps a lot of people out that don't want to allow public hunting, which is a huge hurdle for the program for people to be enrolled. They could still get some help and shoot some deer. For example, the soybean situation in Ashland County, I've got one guy that the last couple of years has maxed out claims of $10,000. He had right here, $15,000 last year. He had $21,000, roughly $20,000 in soybean damage. Right next door to him, another producer that is running a similar amount of acreage. Right next door to him does Act 82 only, and that of the 49 deer shot last year in Ashland County, the guy next door to this guy here was using just Act 82, and so shooting permits only, no claim being paid. He likely is having $15,000 or more in damage himself. However, he chose to only, because he didn't want to allow public hunting, he just wanted some shooting permits, so he shot roughly 28 of the 49 deer shot in Ashland County alone. So long story short, there's a deer problem or a deer situation, at least in Ashland County. The year prior to this, like I said, there was 39 deer shot under shooting permits. Roughly 20 of them were shot by this guy again here too, trying to help out with his deer problem. The Marengo, High Bridge area, there is plenty of deer. You go down to southern Ashland County, not very many deer, but it's also big forest, Clam Lake area, et cetera. It's hard to find a deer track there right now in most of that part of the county. Come up here in Ashland County, I've got guys that have 20, 30 plus deer coming in silage bags the last couple of weeks with this cold snap and, causing a significant amount of damage anyways. So that's why that guy didn't anyways receive any kind of a claim there. The other one was right here showing that he only had $120.98 in damage overall in Ashland County, which is below the $500 deductible. So there's no payment for that. So that's why it wasn't paid out.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that stuff? So I'll just real briefly, I just wanted to go through, fill you guys and kind of help answer a few more questions you might have. What's been going on with the damage program in Ashland County, but also because Bayfield and Iron County are on both sides of you, just give you a quick update, kind of what's going on in the counties around you, because a lot of it's either, gonna start, like especially with the elk, it's starting to mitigate in some other areas in Bayfield County, and just so you have a kind of get an overview of what's been going on here, what I've been up to. How do I make it bigger? What's the slideshow?
Okay, then slideshow. And then from beginning.
Thank
You'll
you.
be a master at this by the end of the day.
I spend too much time in the woods if you can't tell, so. Yep. All right. So last year in a nutshell, through the egg trapping, in 2025, so last year we had roughly eight bears trapped and relocated in Ashland County. Bayfield County 41, Iron County 27, 76 total. The year prior to that, the previous year, 28 in Ashland County, 61 in Bayfield County, 37 Iron County, 126. Last year, what that kind of amounts to is the last year we had a really terrible food source year. Apples, mushrooms, berries, etc. Acorns had a very poor year, and so there was a lot of hungry bears in the landscape. Coming back down to this last recent year, food sources were in a lot better shape. Natural food sources, acorns had a pretty good crop, berries had a good crop, we had a good moisture levels. Bears were hungry, but not as hungry. There's still plenty of bears in the landscape. The population seems like it's doing very well and increasing still. But just the bears were not getting into corn. When they were in the corn, they were only in there for a fraction of the time that they were from like the previous year. So, every season I go through. So in August, September, it's a fun fact. Last August and September, I put 5,562 miles in just the month of August, September, most of that in August, trapping, relocating bears out of cornfields and doing wolf investigations. And this is unfortunately a common theme for me. Every August, September, I have some kind of significant trailer breakage issues, blowing tires, blowing bearings. This day I had luckily just relocated a pair of bears and got them out of my traps, and then blew my bearings and a tire off at the same time. And had a friend come out, or a coworker come out and help haul the traps away and get the trailer fixed, etc. So another thing you guys probably heard about wasn't in Ashland County as much, was in Bayfield County, the jughead bear. That was a situation. I was the one doing the trapping with that. I trapped that bear for a week straight, 4 different locations over about 50, 60 miles. Trying to catch up to that bear, never hit the same place twice kind of thing. Finally, they were able to catch that bear, or catch up to that bear, and my supervisor was able to free range dart and tranquilize the bear, get the jug off. Bear lived a happy ending, thankfully, and went a week without eating and made up for it, and I'm sure minutes after that. That bear, I talked to a couple different landowners trying to trap that bear. They'd seen it. I'd get a call at 8 o'clock in the morning. Hey, it's my bird feeder. I'd show up there at 9 o'clock. Bear would be gone, but I'd set the trap. And the guy said one guy said he watched the bear dunk its head into like a bird bath, like a big giant bird bath garden kind of thing, deep enough that you could get the jug into the water enough that water would go around the seam of it so it could at least get water. So that bear did an extensive, week-long journey, and at least was able to stay somewhat hydrated, but it was well underweight. And that was just the week that we knew that the jug was on its head. It's hard to say how long it was on before we caught wind of it. So, that was bear trapping last year. Elk-wise, Ashland County. So this is just a couple pictures showing some of the elk that everybody loves and hates at the same time. I was bear trapping for Morgan Peck about 8 o'clock at night, hauling bears last August. One of Morgan's hayfields, actually. This was the herd. I just saw a couple starting to poke out in the field, come to the tree line. I watched the whole entire herd of 40 some come out. Big, beautiful bull coming out there. Cool to see, but not when it's causing, tens of thousands of dollars in damage, obviously. This is down by Butternut. So this is some of the fields that probably look familiar. Again, these fields were doing really good for most of the summer. We put repellent on. We had lure crops that seemed to be working for most of the growing season. Once the elk ate out the lure crop, unfortunately, the repellent was no longer active as well. And the problem we've been having, and I think I might have a solution this year, hopefully, is once the corn gets too tall, it's hard to spray with a lowboy to put repellent on, and which is what's been going on the last couple of years. And so the elk have been getting into it later in the season. It sounds like this year you might have a drone applicator lined up, possibly, that could put repellent on after the corn is tall enough so that hopefully this situation doesn't happen again. Because what happened is, up until, to my knowledge, from talking to the producer down there, the elk were staying out of the corn through all the growing season right up until sometime in September. They got into the corn, and this is what it turned into. You can see in the pictures here, there's a few cobs for my appraisals. I have to go into each and every field and take 3 samples, roughly 5-gallon bucket worth of each sample of corn to figure out the yields for the corn that was produced in that field. So, I mean, if you look at the field of the 4-wheeler there and the lower right one, good luck finding a cob to take a sample. Basically, I had to scrounge around between all 4 fields to get enough for a sample. That's why it was a total loss of, it was like 39 point some odd, roughly 39, just shy of 40 acres. That was 100% loss for that producer. So, so going forward this year, yeah, we're gonna try and explore more things. Like I said, we've already relocated a good portion of that herd. We tried trapping that herd the previous winter, and conditions were not favorable in the winter to trap. We tried and we did not succeed to remove any of those particular elk. Now this last winter, literally 2 weeks ago, we actually did trap and relocate roughly, yeah, it looks like 16 elk were trapped and relocated, and 3 were collared and released so we can help maintain what's going on with the elk that are still there on that landscape. A couple of cool things too is the picture there, you can see a bull being collared, and what the biologist is doing there is the very bottom of that collar is a brass plate that will eventually be the last holding part of that collar. But in the meantime, he's putting strings in there that are cotton that'll eventually break as time goes on, and the elk's neck grows because that's a young, I believe that was a 1.5 bull. So in the next year or two, that collar that's got all kinds of extra room in it's going to completely expand and take up that whole collar. So that was one cool thing to see there. There's a Ashland County land. Scott's not here, I guess. Yeah, there you are, right there. Yep, there's a picture of Scott right there, helping with the elk. Mary Jo was there. Like a couple other people were there.
Yeah, Seth, this was probably the highlight of our year, was our staff was able to go out and help relocate a couple weeks ago. And it was on a very cold day, but that's all right. It was well worth the adventure.
Yeah, exactly. If you got anything else you were there, if you want to input or something too, feel free. I was just talking to Mary Jo before the meeting started. The reason that this was successful this year versus last year was the winter before. We just did not have much for snow, not much for significant cold, and that was the one thing going in this winter we were hopeful for. And we've had this cold snap come up. The biologists, the DNR has been working very hard because they know how much damage these elk are causing down there. Through my appraisals I'm doing and working with the farmers in this area. And so they made a very serious effort, and I wanted to thank the DNR for coming and making a serious effort to come and try and trap and relocate some of these elk. The elk that are being relocated are being taken back to Clam Lake. They're being held there in a holding area, which is that bottom right picture there you can see with all the elk at the feeders and stuff. So those are the elk, once they bring them back there, my understanding is they stay there for roughly, it's like kind of a slow or cold release, or soft release, I should say, instead of just taking the elk back there, dropping them off, hoping for the best. What they're doing is they're collaring most of the elk that they take back. They're keeping them in this enclosure for roughly 6 weeks to get them acclimated to being back in this area again. And then one day, basically, they're just going to leave the gate open and let the elk come back out on their own naturally, hopefully find the other elk in the Clam Lake area to regroup up with and stay there, hopefully. The elk that are moved there also, the reason that, like, for example, three elk were collared and released on site instead of relocated was they were larger or adult animals, like an old bull, I think one was an old cow. Those are the ones that DNRs had issues with when they relocate, wanting to come back because they obviously are ones that came there in the first place, and so they kind of know the way. They know there's greener pasture somewhere else, and they know if they want to, they can find it. So those are the ones they've been trying not to relocate and trying to focus on young calves, young cows, and relocating those ones. So, and then in a nutshell too, everybody always wants to know what's going on with the wolves, even though it's not part of the damage program. Let's briefly go over that real quick. Last year, statewide, there was 98 verified wolf investigations, 103 in 2024, the previous year. Ashland County had 10 last year, Bayfield County 12, Iron County 0, and then the numbers beside that kind of show what's going on. In a nutshell, there's plenty of wolf problems still, and I did, in just my area, I did 21 wolf investigations in Ashland, Bayfield, and Ashland, Bayfield County last year, plus some other people helped cover when I was on vacations too, so. And the things we've been using that's been the most effective to help with that, you can see there's a picture of some radios there. That's essentially when a farmer calls and says, hey, I got a calf that was killed. I come out and look at it, verify it. Once it's verified, we can help them get reimbursed for the loss of their animal, and then also provide abatement. And so since wolves are protected right now, the abatement we're providing is non-lethal. And that mostly right now is going to be in the shape of a radio. It's a solar powered radio that charges all day, and I can program it to play all night essentially, and the wolves are most active. And so I put that in the cattle pasture and put on public talk radio, a book on tape, something to that extent, and a Sherlock Holmes book or something like that. Actually, right now we have a radio going for a guy down by Highbridge that's got elk getting in stored feed, and I've got Sherlock Holmes blaring that you can hear about a mile or two away every single night. And for the last 3 weeks, it's kept the elk away, surprisingly, which is good for now. Hopefully it stays that way. If he has damage, we're still going to work with him. He's got 15 bales that until I got the radio there, which I responded within 2 days of him calling me, I got the radio out there. There was about 15 bales that were damaged. I don't think, yep, there's the pictures of that there. So top left picture is some of the bales that were damaged. There's all kinds of elk tracks going in there doing it. There's no question what's doing it. The farmer took those damaged bales, put them back in the field at the far extent of the field, far away. And then that picture on the red wagon there is the radio, actually what it looks like, essentially sitting there on the trailer playing every night, blaring Sherlock Holmes, scaring elk away. So works great for elk. I'm going to deploy one of those radios today later for a guy that's got deer issues as well, stored feed. And it's been helping save a lot of cattle. The last handful of years, been using these radios a lot, and they've been saving a lot of cattle for producers as well. So that picture in the middle, by the way, the dog, that's showing a bite mark on a border collie that was 2-3 miles just up from the roundabout, just outside of Ashland here, into Bayfield County. A border collie was bit last summer by a wolf. You can see 3 of the 4 canine punctures there, showing the sizing spacing that only matches a wolf. Typical wolf bites, 1.75 inch wide spacing with a roughly 1/4 inch or up to 1/2 inch diameter size puncture mark. And that's what's on that border collie that was taken to the vet. I looked at it while I was in the vet and got the nice picture there. Usually the pictures I have are not that nice to look at, put it that way. So I thought that was appropriate. I went to that field and the owners of the dog showed me where that happened. I found wolf tracks to also back up. The tooth marks were more than enough evidence, but I went and found tracks from the dog and interviewed the owners, got their testimony, and found tracks from wolves that had tangled up with that dog. And that was of the 20-some investigations I did last year in Ashland, Bayfield County. So, and that's everything that I had to show. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anything else.
So as the population of elk grows towards your target, the elk seem like deer, they're going to want to go where there's food sources. So long-term, is moving elk away from ag areas back to Clam Lake going to be an effective, cost-effective strategy? Or are we going to have elk more prevalent in ag areas like we do deer?
Yeah, $1 million question, but from my understanding, that'd be a really good question from the DNR. My understanding is that they're trying to do a lot more forest management in the Clam Lake area, trying to get more recruitment of young aspen stands, which is the elk's primary food source, what's supposed to be in the wintertime. And so obviously if elk has a choice between, stored feed in the wintertime versus, feeding on popple, I can understand what the elk, wants to try and find those other food sources, but trying to make more of this natural food sources through forest management. I know it's something DNR has been looking at doing a lot and trying to emphasize on. And so the goal is, trying to help with that way, and then also trying to help with the DNR is looking at trying to figure out some kind of fencing options for farmers that are having stored feed issues in the wintertime. Because in the summertime, there's some options that are somewhat effective because elk are hungry, but they're not as hungry. And so through lure crop plantings, repellents, other kinds of hazing and stuff, elk are somewhat persuadable to kind of detour, and they'll still do some damage. But last year was kind of a better example. We had similar situation last year, 2 producers in Ashland County, and the lure crop situation worked a little better last year. The elk damage I forget what Radlinger's elk damage was last year. It was maybe $3,000 or $4,000, something like that. It was less than half, I think, around half. We had a good round of repellents applied. We had a good lure crop situation planting going on, and it seemed to work out better. And then up in the Marengo area, those elk tend to spread out their damage. So a lot more farmers, numerous farmers are being impacted up there. And the good thing is they're kind of not the good thing, but they're sharing the load, and I'm trying to get out there and reach out to as many farmers as possible and spread the word. If you're having elk damage, let me know, because if I don't know, I can't help you. And so I just talked to someone before the meeting started here again too, trying to get that word out, that because part of the problem is in the past, producers were led to believe that elk couldn't be covered under the program, and it wasn't super helpful to them. And so I'm trying to get that straightened out, let people know that we're here to help. We have a program in place, and trying to get people engaged and enrolled in the program and help them out so we can start mitigating these problems, track where the elk are going, what they're doing. Because again, if I don't know until December what elk problems you had in July, I can't really help a lot with that situation. But if I know during the growing season you're having problems, technically for someone to enroll in the program for elk, for example, I have to know within 2 weeks of the start of damage. Which isn't always an easy thing to predict, but there's some gray area in that. The main thing is if I know there's something going on during the growing season, there's a lot more room to help versus in October when you're harvesting your crops and saying you got a bunch of elk damage. The damage is already done at that point. So I've got a list of people going into this field season that I'm going to be working with that had not been enrolled before for elk problems this coming season anyway. So like I said, the program acreage wise and enrollee wise, especially in regards to elk, is going to be increasing more. And that's a good thing, I guess, anyway. So.
Thank you very, very much. This was probably the most exciting part of the meeting for them.
Glad I could help.
That was an excellent report, but I would point out that we are almost an hour into this meeting and we've covered 2 out of the 12 action and discussion items.
Duly noted. Okay, that brings us to civil engineering technician report. Nope.
No, we're up on item C, update on the farmland preservation plan. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we did complete our farmland preservation plan update process. It is open for public comment right now, so it's available on the county's website. And then it's on the county board agenda for the end of the month for approval. It's also been sent to Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, DATCAP, for approval. And I'll be finalizing the last of our requirements to get the plan approved and then seek grant reimbursement because we did work with Northwest Regional Planning Commission on a contract to update that plan. So we were able to get a grant through the state to pay for half of the consulting fee on them. So we'll be seeking grant reimbursement. So if anyone has any interest in viewing a copy of that, it is on the county, Ashland County website. And that's it as far as the update.
Very good. Moving on. Environmental impacts of long-term weather trends.
This is a standing agenda item that George had requested. I don't have anything specific on this.
George?
Yeah, one question crossed my mind when I was looking at one of the items here about reimbursement for lands included in farmland preservation, like $10 an acre if you're signed up in that plan. And I was wondering if that still holds when someone puts land into solar, if it's still being grazed. And I don't know if we have the answer to that. But suppose someone puts in a 100-acre solar plan, but is still using it for grazing purposes, would it still qualify?
So the way that I'm understanding that is you have to take whatever is being covered by the solar panels, and that has to come out of farmland preservation. So even though if it's being solar grazed, if it's being covered by the solar panels because you're generating a different type of income or something, I don't fully understand it, but there is some type of criteria that if you have solar panels on it, that it doesn't qualify for that full amount of farmland preservation.
Jerry?
Didn't you tell them whoever made that plan I have a solar panel and I got a mow lawn under it steady and I got to weed whack it too. It keeps on growing. So that should be known. I mean, the only place that there's nothing that grows is right where the pipes go down and you still got to trim them.
So it's solar
Would
fields.
still be valuable for grazing.
Yeah, it's solar fields though. Like people are putting solar fields in for like some type of electric company, kickback or something like that. I don't think it pertains to like little solar, like personal solar fields, but it's like I think it's more particular to solar fields where people are putting in, a 20-acre chunk or something like that. That's my understanding anyway.
George.
Yeah, maybe just ask Tim to do some follow-up research on that, because you could easily install a solar field 100 acres to make it grazable or even to make it croppable. So it depends on how it's installed, and I don't know if our regulations are going to keep up with that. But $10 an acre probably doesn't really matter. Probably not going to bother to claim it if you can. I don't know. I think the offers on lease of land to do solar fields is far in excess of that small amount anyway. But it might be a point that would come up if someone decides to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate of solar grazing. I mean, it's very much growing. But if you put 10 acres of solar in on a pasture, I mean, that's $100, so you're going to probably gain more by the solar panels than the credit. So
Pat.
So let's say a company wants to come in and put a utility scale solar farm in. Solar farms 100 megawatts and larger have to be permitted by the Public Service Commission, the PSC. So there's a process through that. Would that land, if it's in farmland preservation right now, need to be pulled out by the county as part of the process for citing that solar farm in the review process?
I don't know. Good question. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know of anybody that's in farmland preservation that has anything like that right now. We only have a few farms that are in preservation, and the farms that I know of that are in there don't have that anyway. So maybe if someone had it in there and then they wanted to put it in, but I think if someone puts a solar field in, I don't know. It's a good question. There's no conflict right now, so.
So in zoning and finance, we've been talking about solar farms some. We're going to have XL Energy at a meeting next week. And so it's a potential question if someone is interested in citing a solar farm, if that's something that needs to be considered or not. But I mean, it's just an early process question as far as looking at things.
Sure. I mean, and either way, they have to be in the AEA. So they'd have to be in that ag enterprise area in order to qualify anyway. So if someone's putting a solar field in the ag enterprise area, that's the only place they could, there'd be a conflict. Outside of the ag enterprise area, there's no conflict. So, and I can find more information on it too, just to make, so if there's clarification, so.
George.
Just a question for Mary Jo. Do you have any update on the expected precipitation trends this year? Any variation from our expected pattern? Dry summer, wet spring and fall? Any information?
No, I'm not aware of any of that.
Okay, moving on. Discussion fly ash.
One quick thing. The University of Wisconsin Climatology Center is creating climate profiles for each county in Wisconsin. And I did request one to be created for Ashland County, and that has been created. So there is a climate profile that's been developed for Ashland County, and it does refer, George, to some of those statistics. What is our annual precipitation? What are our annual temperatures? So I can forward you a copy of that or send you the link.
Yeah, Mary Jo, I read that and it was excellent, absolutely excellent report. Encourage everybody else to look at it, everybody to look at it.
Getting back to the fly ash discussion. Any questions, comments? Jerry?
I think that after looking at the minutes, I appreciate it. It's real thorough in there, what you went through to get that, Seth. It explains a lot. I've talked to some people from the power company, and obviously they said in 2020 they don't burn coal anymore, but they still use creosoted, whatever they call them, and it's still, there still is fly ash, but it's not. It's hauled to a landfill.
Yep, so I made that kind of just an information sheet from our last meeting based on the requested information. So a lot of the information I pulled was from the US DOT Federal Highway Administration. They have many more chapters and pages of information. So I tried my best to just condense all of that into a couple pages of what it is, where we might see it. I believe they said in their report about 0.1% is used in agriculture. So not to say that our area doesn't use it in a more concentrated rate. But from other resources such as the Wisconsin DNR and the natural resource codes from the state legislature, a lot of the fly ash, at least from what I was able to research, not to say it hasn't been spread on agricultural lands used for grade stabilization or road stabilization, sorry, or soil stabilization, that it is hauled to the landfill for the most part in our area. But I don't want to jump to conclusions there because there's been comments that it might be more present in our soils than what this information shows. So there's plenty of links there from Excel, DNR. We Energies is the biggest energy supplier in the state. So I encourage you to look at that information.
Jerry?
If I read it right and understand it right, I'm under the understanding that it has more of a negative environmental impact when it's put on clay soils rather than sand.
I believe that it is typically used in clay soils to reduce the plasticity of the clay because the particles are similar to silt soils. So at least that particle size, but it has lime type properties as well. So that's where it could have been used, but it's hard to say if the leaching rates into our groundwater would be increased due to those different soil particle or different particle sizes. But the DNR would ultimately regulate that.
Any more questions, comments? If not, move on number 7. NRCS agency reports and updates.
Hi, my name is Beth Points. It's my first time here. Hi, everybody. I work here in Ashland, and Mike Blunt is my supervisor. So I'm a resource conservationist, and he's the district conservationist here. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. We have had our normal programmatic deadline is generally at the end of October, beginning of November, and we had that shifted due to many things this past fall to January 15th. So we just ended up with that application deadline for EQIP Environmental Quality Incentive Program and CSP Conservation Stewardship Programs just here a few weeks ago. We've had a lot of people applying for both in Ashland and the surrounding counties for various things, a lot of forestry related items along with grazing and cropland type items. And there's actually a new program that just was rolled out, or a part of those other two programs that were just rolled out within the last couple of months, called the Regenerative Pilot Program, RPP for short. And it is primarily focused on water or soil benefits. So one of the things that one focuses on is several types of practices like cover crops, grazing management, different things along those lines, no-till, nutrient management, different things like that. And it also includes a soil of a specific variety, specific grouping of soil tests the first year of a contract and then the last year of a contract to see the differences or get a baseline for more information gathering. We don't know a whole lot about this just yet. It's just been kind of rolled out, and we've had some trainings over the last just couple of weeks. And so we're all just jumping in on this one and kind of trying to figure it out all together as we go. So this year will definitely be a couple maybe people in our 4-county area up here along the lake that will hopefully be able to get into this and see how it goes. And then hopefully next year we can just keep adding a few more. I know that they've said, the administration has said that they want to put 25% of our funding toward this program, and it's available both in the CSP and EQIP programs. So that's really all I know about that, but it's an interesting opportunity. And, we're working on ranking and different things like that now, but that's all I had. Any questions at all?
Yes, you mentioned all of the practices that the RPP covered, but you mentioned something about water quality. What is the main focus of the program?
Yeah, so we have a whole long list of resource concerns that are available to review, assess, and benefit from some of our practices. Various ones benefit various resource concerns. And so this primary thought of this program is to primarily benefit soil and water health. We have a suite of soil resource concerns and a suite of water resource concerns that we would need to assess and make better by the end of the contract, for this program to be a program. So, or for people to be able to get a contract in this program. So that's one of the requirements, is to start out in a place and then by the end of the contract to have moved it to a better spot with this. So, yeah. That's all I had.
Any questions? Okay.
Is that it for that item? Okay, well then we'll move on. Civil engineering technician report.
USDA agency.
Yeah, and Ethan already
Oh.
gave his update,
Yeah.
so,
While I had the computer going, I kind of went over that already probably, so.
yeah, thank you.
Well, how about the technician report then?
Yep. So we sent out all of the reports ahead of time for this meeting. So if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Hearing none? Ag technician report?
I think it's all there. I sent out the first 100 flyers to farmers that I know, or people that I basically know have some type of farm. And then the rest, I'm still figuring out everybody else in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, Iron County that has farms or are connected to some type of farm. So everything's there. Nutrient management, some new plans looking at farmland preservations, stagnant, especially right now with the winter time. And as I noted, there's lots of hesitations with the farmland preservation program because a lot of farmers are still thinking of the 1980s program. There was a lot more restrictions. They weren't paid as much, and there was longer terms. So there's still that in the back of a lot of farmers' minds. So
And that'll bring us to George.
Yeah, I just want to ask Tim, what is the grazing certification? It says still pursuing grazing certification this spring.
So I'm working, actually just applied for it. So 10 years ago when I was grazing specialist here, I was certified with NRCS to write grazing plans. And since that time has lapsed, now they have a new process to get guys to be technical service providers. So I'm working towards that. It kind of works well with my position. And then I can write them for NRCS to have that resource up here. So, and then guys can get paid for grazing plans. And then it piggybacks on other, if I want to do fencing or other things, especially through NRCS. A lot of times they have to have a grazing plan, certified grazing plan. So that hopefully will be, if I'll have this by August or September. So
Thanks.
Any more questions? Then we will move on to Watershed Program Coordinator Report.
So Ellie's not here today. She's in hopefully sunny Mexico. We haven't heard from her, so we're hoping that she's having a great old time and hoping that she remembers her trip. So, yeah, so she's been doing a great job. She's working on our new Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant to implement more natural flood management practices beginning this summer. So her and Seth have been working with a landowner on that for getting ready to implement a conservation project this summer that will run for a couple years. She's also been doing quite a bit of work with youth education and prepping for summer work for lake investigations and invasive species work. So she has a pretty thorough report there, and if you guys have any questions, you can send her an email.
Very good. That would bring us to, we just discussed F there, the land and water specialist. That was what we were just talking about.
That's what we're,
Okay, land and water specialist report.
Yeah, a few comments about that. I think you got my report a few weeks ago. Just a couple highlights that I wanted to share. So we're up to, as of the time that I printed off that report and got that sent out, we had 149 orders for our tree and shrub sale that covered about 4,100 trees and shrubs total, which is about where we were last year, maybe just a tiny bit ahead of schedule. So yeah, feeling pretty good about that. Let's see, doing a lot of planning committee meetings. We like to try to get a lot of that, our planning for our field season programming. Try to get a lot of those meetings knocked out during the winter months here. So doing a lot of planning meetings for things like Kids Fishing Day up at the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center, invasive species identification days up at the Visitor Center as well. Student Science Expo for 7th and 8th graders in northern Wisconsin, Purple Loosestrife Biocontrol, and a few other programs there. So trying to get out as much of that planning during the winter months as we possibly can. So once the snow melts, we can really hit the ground running. So doing a lot of that. We just wrapped up our Ashland County as well as our Northwest area poster and speaking contest. The posters were pretty phenomenal. Again, this year is included copies of the first place entries at the Ashland County contest, so feel free to check those out. Yes, we have the five first place winners at the county level, and then three of those, let's see, Olin Schmidt, as well as Alex Granger and Noel Granger. So the three youngest categories, all three of those posters won not just at the Ashland County contest, but they actually won the Northwest area contest down in Shell Lake as well. So those three posters will be advancing to the state competition, which will be in March. So yeah, we're doing a lot of educational talks to really get students that are interested in participating, trying to brainstorm and get ideas that they can take to their posters. And I think we definitely saw that this year. Some of the ideas that Ellie and I discussed with the students, we saw some of those ideas incorporated on their posters, which is really, really neat to see. So as always, happy to answer questions.
Real quick too, take some time to look at the posters in the hallway and the stairwell out here. We had to fight pretty hard and had quite a bit of backlash to actually get those posted there. And Scott will be alternating new posters out annually. So, if you like that, mention that to the clerk's office or to Dan. We'd like to get more of these posters up. We've had hundreds of poster entries over the years, and it provides quite a bit of conservation to our youth in the county. It is one of our most important programs for getting into the schools.
Absolutely. And just one additional comment, if I could. We do have, excuse me, I partnered up with the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center. So they have both in our office on Sanborn Avenue, we have our, I always call it the Poster Contest Hall of Fame. So we have, I believe, about 16 first place posters all framed up, and they're in our office. I did pitch the idea to the folks at the Visitor Center, and they absolutely loved it. So we printed off additional copies and framed all those up for them. I printed off little labels with like the student name, their schools, grade level, all that kind of good stuff. So that exhibit is up at the Visitor Center. I've swung by there a few times. It looks phenomenal. So very, very happy with that partnership there. So, and like Mary Jo said, it's we have our set in the office at the visitor center, but I would like to see even more here at the courthouse if we possibly can. So any positive feedback would be much appreciated.
Pat?
I've only heard positive comments about them being displayed in the courthouse. So if I can remember, I'll talk to Dan and maybe we have him just ask the board, do you support having these things here? And then that would be a settled issue. And send me an email to remind me if I forget. But no, it's been great and quite creative and appreciated. Scott, we had a cold snap here lately and it was cold for a few days. And I was really happy with it to have it that cold that long, because now I can see how some of my trees are doing. So black walnut, for example, I've got some started from seeds from a tree in Ashland. I've got some from the Wisconsin DNR, and I've got some from Iowa State. I'm going to see if these things survive the winter, and if so, how, and if they're different, but other tree species that I've been putting in, as we work towards climate change. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you, to the extent that you can, ask people, because I know there's a lot of repeat people. I've got 300 more trees coming this year from the DNR. But, are these trees surviving the winter? If you can go back and look at them, because if they can survive the winter we just had, for as cold as it was, as long as it was, that tells us something about the viability at this point. On the other hand, if people say, yeah, I've lost a lot, and if so, what? That could be some really good data, just whatever you can get by word of mouth, talking to people or sending out emails and asking people to observe that. Because if they survived what we just had, that's a positive thing as far as this effort on transition. Yeah.
George?
So two questions, one about the posters and one about the Student Science Expo. So first I was wondering whether these posters that show up really great on screen, whether they're posted anywhere online, for instance, in the county website. And if they are, we should make that visible. And if they aren't, we should find a way to do that because they look great up on the screen. And that's a broader distribution. The second, could you tell us a little bit more about this Student Science Expo? Don't know much about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess to address your first question there, we do have posters on the Ashland County Land and Water website. Krisha's pulling it up there. We normally try to keep it fresh with just the first place winners from the previous year. So we'll be getting these as the Home is Where the Habitat is was the previous theme for the contest, and then we will have the next one. We'll be tossing those up probably within the next few months here once the state competition is done. But yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that, George, as well. It might be good to just have, even if we had another link to have all the, historic winners and stuff like that too, to keep those on there. I like that idea. And then, yeah, as far as the Student Science Expo, it's a one-day event in typically early to mid-October. So kind of myself and then a representative from Fish and Wildlife Service, Great Lakes Visitor Center, U.S. Forest Service, Bayfield County, and the Northwoods Cooperative Weed Management Area. So we sit on a planning committee and basically organize the Student Science Expo. So yeah, one-day event designed to educate 7th and 8th graders from all across Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron counties. And we have on any given year, I would say approximately probably about 20 resource professionals representing local tribes and federal organizations, state organizations, obviously the counties, nonprofit, private, all kinds of different exhibitors. So we try to educate the students on a wide variety of topics. So there's things on invasive species, there's things on bats, there's things on climate change and a watershed model and fisheries, fish dissection, wildlife management, you name it. We try to get a representative from all different kinds of science-related careers and different topics that might be of interest to the students. So, yeah.
Do you coordinate with our 4-H educator?
So Dave is not currently. That's a good suggestion there to bring that up. Dave is not currently involved within that, but yeah, that's certainly something that we could look at.
I suspect Dave Allman would be open to that. He's our new 4-H educator.
Yeah, yep, I know Dave fairly well, so yeah, we can certainly reach out to him as well.
Any more questions, comments? Very nice. Which brings us to the county conservationist report.
Okay, just a couple things for me. Highlight of this year so far was helping out with the elk program. That was pretty amazing. And you heard the update from Ethan about that elk relocation. I listed a bunch of different grant administration items on the bottom of the first page of my report. So that amounts to a little over $368,000 that has been received or deposited in the last month. So basically just in the beginning of 2026. So we have lots of grant reimbursements that Carisha and I have been working on and a couple of new grant applications. And then in the next month, Seth and I will be working on a very large application with the state of Wisconsin called the Targeted Runoff Management Program. And that will be to work with one of our farmers to build a new manure storage facility. So that's going to be a grant that'll be over $200,000. It's highly competitive. We've never applied for that before. So that's kind of the new thing that's on the radar. But bottom line is there's lots of money rolling in and programs are fully funded, which is great, great for us. In addition to that, Wisconsin for years has been lobbying at the state level to have our land conservation staff across the state fully funded. So Chapter 92 advises that the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection will support 3 staff positions in every county. It's always supposed to be funded at 100% of the first position, 75% of the second, and 50% of the third position. In my 25 years in conservation, the state has never had enough money to actually allocate that much money to each county. So for years, I have testified at state hearings, and our state Wisconsin Land and Water Association has lobbied for full funding. And I am happy to say in 2026, this is the first time ever that equation will be fully funded in each county. So every county in the state of Wisconsin will receive that funding allocation of 100%, 75%, and 50%. It resulted in a $14 million increase for conservation staff this year and next year. Unfortunately, it is a one-time funding fill. It's not to the base allocation, so we will still be lobbying for that. But it's a huge increase, especially in the current administration that we're in. So it's a success. So that will result in about another $30,000 increase to Ashland County for staffing for the next couple of years, which is wonderful news. And then on the backside of my report, we hosted the Lake Superior Collaborative Symposium a couple weeks ago. That was held at the Visitor Center. This is an annual event that many different natural resource agencies put together. It's typically held in October, but due to the government shutdown, we had to postpone it because we host it at the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center. And Governor Evers was able to attend this year and give a short address. So that was fun. My staff helps host a conservation trivia night at this event, which is always a big hit for all of the natural resource partners. We had about 40 people in attendance for that. It was a good time and lots of learning involved. So that's it for me. If you have any specific questions from the report, I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you.
No questions? George?
Short one. What did Governor Evers have to say?
Governor Evers loves Ashland and Lake Superior. He's highly passionate. He's also extremely passionate about the work that land and water conservation departments are doing on the ground. There's quite a bit of media right now about boots on the ground is what you hear. So he's very complimentary about the type of work that's happening through conservation departments and with all of the unique partnerships that we have in Ashland with state, federal, county, and nonprofit groups. Ashland is very, very rich with natural resource work and partners. We're very fortunate to be able to work collaboratively in this region. Even just seeing the representation here today, having state and federal and county partners all working together to provide access, resources, technical assistance, and financial assistance to landowners. It's an amazing accomplishment.
And is he moving here in retirement?
I do not know that for sure. And also, just one other quick update. I will be heading to a national conference this Saturday. I'll be attending the National Association of Conservation Districts. That is the grant that we've received for the last 5 years to fund our ag technician. So I'm going to be taking our message and the work that we're doing here to San Antonio.
Anything else? Sounds like Mary Jo and crew have a good handle on the situation. Thank you. Committee member updates. Jerry,
First of all, I'd like to apologize to the committee. It was beyond my control for being late. Sorry.
apology accepted. No other updates, comments? Then schedule next meeting date.
Is there a particular day of the week that works best for people? Because we skip around to days quite a bit, and I was wondering if there is like a certain day, like Tuesdays. Do Tuesdays work for everyone?
No, it's often county board, so Wednesdays are good.
Wednesdays, or do people like Fridays? Okay. No comments heard, so. How about a couple months out? May? All right, we'll look out in May. Um, how about May 27th? Right before summer starts.
Just to point out, you have a new committee at that point in time. It'll be post-election.
Actually, that's probably a good timing then. Do we need to meet before that? Do committees have to be appointed in early May?
Well, after the election, the new board chair, which is elected 2 weeks after the election. So the election is April 7th. 2 weeks later, there'll be a reorganizational meeting, which will mean a reelection or election of a new chair. Then that board chair and administrator work together to make appointments. And those appointments get approved at the following board meeting, which will be somewhere typically 2 to 3 weeks later, just to get committees approved and going. So you're not going to have an approval of a new committee probably at least until 2 weeks after April 21st.
Yeah, by the end of May.
So by the end of May, those appointments will have been made, but as far as picking a date now, you don't know necessarily who's on the committee.
You can pick it and just.
Yeah, you can pick a day and
Okay, tentatively, we'll say May 27th.
do you know where that lands in relation to Memorial Day?
2 days after.
2 days after.
Right.
Should we do it before that? We could do
No,
May.
the only reason I ask is I know a day before or day after the holiday, a lot of times it's hard to round everybody up or enough sometimes for a quorum is all. 2 days
Yeah.
away should be close enough that, or far enough away that you'll have a quorum.
Okay, we'll do May 27th, and if we have to change it, we will. And David, does 9 o'clock work okay for you? Or would you prefer 10 o'clock?
Nice, fine.
Perfect. You traveled the farthest, so that's why I'm asking you. All right, May 27th at 9 a.m.
All right, which brings us to adjournment. I need a motion. Motion by Jerry,
I'll second that.
second by Dave. All in favor?
Yep.
Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.